wildfires cost the U.S. economy up to $893 billion every year. Early estimates already put the cost of the recent wildfires in Southern California at $57 billion in total damages and economic losses. But over the years, Americans haven't just stood by. They've taken the fight against wildfires into their own hands, designing custom homes with extra fire defenses.
It's a metal roof, it has a stucco exterior, 10,000-gallon water tank.
Reviving the indigenous practice of controlled burns, or rushing to find new ways to save their businesses as fires approach. Here are some of the ways people have been adapting to a world where fire season may never end.
These pilots are flying what's called a super scooper. At around $30 million, it's one of the most expensive aerial firefighting aircraft ever made.
It's literally a boat with giant wings, and it's built like a tank. It looks like no other plane in the world.
The CL-415 Enhanced Aerial Firefighter can scoop and drop 1,400 gallons of water on wildfires in a matter of minutes. Compare that to this 1970s plane, which could only drop 200 gallons of water at a time.
$30 million is very expensive for any aircraft. However, it's actually the most cost-effective aerial firefighting asset.
Super Scoopers revolutionized aerial firefighting, and Insider got an up-close look with Bridger Aerospace to see how this aircraft is tailor-made to fight fires. Airplanes have been used to fight wildfires for almost 100 years, but early attempts weren't nearly as effective.
In the 50s and 60s, almost all the aircraft used to fight fires were retired or salvaged World War II aircraft. Tanks were strapped to the middle, and they were used in a very haphazard provisional manner.
Some of these makeshift firefighting planes were only able to drop 150 to 200 gallons of water at a time.
Not really effective in today's world, but at the time it's the best they could do.
Canadair was contracted to design a plane specifically to fight fires.
So they designed the grandfather of this airplane, the CL-215, looked very similar.
Which Viking Air Limited modernized in 2020. Retrofitting the CL-215 with a new avionics system, turbine engines, and more.
It was taken down to its bones and created essentially a new airplane.
Weighing in at 30,000 pounds, the CL-415 EAF is 30 feet tall and has a 93-foot wingspan, just 24 feet shy of a Boeing 737's wingspan.
When you're up close to it, you really appreciate just the massive size of it.
But despite its size, the aircraft was engineered to fly like a much smaller plane.
When you look at them, they don't necessarily look like they'd be an aerobatic or stunt plane.
We're taking a plane almost the size of a C-130. We're flying into extremely narrow canyons, very low altitude, banking high G turns at a high rate of turn. Flying an aircraft this big, that low, and that dangerous of an environment is very rare.
The Scooper is so nimble because of its flight control surfaces, or aerodynamic devices that pilots use to adjust and control the aircraft. On any plane, the main control surfaces are the ailerons, which control the plane's roll, the rudder, which controls yaw or the aircraft's direction, and elevators, which control the aircraft's pitch. And in the case of the Super Scooper, those flight control surfaces are supersized.
That's important because when you're flying slow and big, you need to have a lot of aileron area, a lot of elevator area to be able to move that aircraft as quickly as you need to at those low speeds.
That's why this rudder is 25 square feet larger than that of a Boeing 737-900, even though the Super Scooper is 10 feet shorter and half as long. This is crucial for the Scooper. It needs to slow down to 90 knots, or just over 100 miles per hour, to perform a scoop. That's almost half the aircraft's standard cruising speed.
Once you've identified your scoop site and you're coming in, you go through your pre-pickup checklist. One of those items is probes down.
Probes are down.
The way the aircraft picks up water is it does not stop or suck it up. There's no vacuum. It scoops it, and it scoops it through what you see here. 2 probes on either side of the keel of the aircraft, about the size of your hands put together. And as soon as you hit the water, they catch. You can feel that in the cockpit. You got to be ready for that catch with the yoke.
Right there, get ready to add some power. Now. Oh.
And the water begins filling almost immediately.
It takes the Scooper 12 seconds to fill its tanks with 1,400 gallons of water, during which time the pilot has to maintain the plane's speed and direction.
Once the aircraft is full and the tanks are full, you retract the probes, there is a noticeable surge in the aircraft when those probes go up, get the aircraft back up to speed, and take off.
Now 11,000 pounds heavier, the aircraft relies on its design to ascend from the surface.
If you look at the wing, you can see it has a very large curvature to it. That's called camber, which creates an enormous amount of lift.
But aerodynamics aren't the only factor involved. The plane is outfitted with turboprop engines that generate more than enough power to lift it off the surface.
They make 2,380 shaft horsepower each side.
These engines are extremely durable. You never want to hit anything with them, of course, but if it's ash or debris being pushed up through the thermals of the fire, these engines are going to chew right through that and keep running.
All that enables the Scooper to ascend back up to its previous altitude in roughly 3 minutes.
Scooper 282 is inbound, loaded for the drop.
So when we're lining up for a drop, the air attack will get us on target. They're in contact with the folks on the ground who are requesting the water. We're factoring in the terrain, the wind, our altitude for when we need to press the button to make the drop.
When the pilot is ready to drop the load, they'll press the water drop button.
And 3, 2, 1, drop.
Opening the drop doors on the keel and releasing 1,400 gallons of water.
Loads away.
It only takes 2 seconds for the aircraft to drop its entire load, a very short window for the pilot to work with.
There is no targeting computer. It's all by feel and by experience.
But the Super Scooper's high-lift wing and turboprop engines allow it to attack forest fires from a lower altitude and speed than other firefighting aircraft. While planes like the 747 Supertanker and DC-10 make drops from between 200 and 800 feet, the Super Scooper can do so from as low as 100 feet above a fire.
When you're fighting fire at low altitude, flying through mountains and smoke and trees, having the ability to quickly adjust to terrain variations, other aircraft in the area, or obstacles that emerge through the smoke is very important.
After performing the drop, the Scooper can simply head back to the water source to pick up another load, rather than refilling on the ground.
So from drop to drop, it really depends on how close our water source is. But I've been on fires where we're dropping a load of water every 6 minutes.
The aircraft can go up to 6 hours between refuels, depending on conditions, meaning it can fight fires longer than other aircraft that need to refuel every 2 hours.
Although the sticker price on the aircraft is very expensive, it can deliver 150,000 gallons in one service day compared to a more traditional tanker that can oftentimes only do a small fraction of that. It's actually the most cost-effective aero firefighting asset.
And with a paint job like that, it can be hard to miss.
It's a very flashy paint job on these aircraft, and it's one of the questions we're asked quite often is why is it painted the way it is? The goal is to be visible in this super dense smoke. It's a very action-packed circuit when these guys are fighting the fires, and safety is the ultimate goal.
For aerial firefighters, the next game-changing innovations aren't going to come to the planes themselves.
The next ridgeline for aero firefighting is going to be data. It's going to be understanding what the fire is doing, where it's going, where it came from, and being able to share that data with as wide a population as possible. That can better inform our aerial response, better inform the ground response, and make sure that those citizens affected by the incident are given the best information possible to protect themselves, their families, and their livelihood.
In the meantime, aerial firefighting aircraft like the Super Scooper are tasked with keeping forest fires in check.
Flying this aircraft in the environment we fly it in, it's very exciting, it's very dangerous, but it's also very fun.
Workers at this vineyard in Sonoma County rushed to harvest 10 tons of grapes off the vine late at night. That's because the second largest fire in California history was burning just 1 mile away.
Oh, wow, that's getting close.
That just came up, huh? Yeah, that's scary.
This isn't a typical pick because the grapes aren't really ripe enough.
It's a scene that's unfolding across California's wine industry. In recent years, winemakers have been forced to make a difficult decision: salvage what they can before smoke ruins their grapes, or lose the crops and hope insurance will cover the losses. Since August 15th, over 1.6 million acres in California have burned, an area about the size of the entire state of Delaware. Scientists say that this year could likely mark the state's worst ever wildfire season. It's a devastating sequel to 2019, when the season's worst fire, Kincaid, destroyed over 100 buildings, including local landmarks like the Soda Rock Winery in Healdsburg.
Yeah, it's just a larger question of like, what's gonna happen going forward? This is 3 out of 4 years now that we're doing this.
And as the fires burn, there are fears that the ongoing coronavirus pandemic could spread among agricultural workers. In a normal year, the end of summer would mark the beginning of harvest in wine country. Nearly 15 million tourists visit Sonoma and Napa counties annually, pumping about $4 billion into wineries, hotels, and restaurants.
Right now is the most critical time for the industry and our business and our county. Our county depends on agricultural, specifically grapes, and wine growing. And so if we're unable to do that or execute that because of weather or whatever it is, that's going to have a dramatic effect on this community.
Ross Reedy has worked in the wine industry for 12 years as a wine grower and a winemaker. He's seen how fires have changed the landscape over the years.
10 years ago, I remember walking through a vineyard and looking at it and say, oh yeah, we've got 2 weeks, until that's ready. And you can pick based on ripeness and, the physiology of the grape. Now, the past 3 or 4 years, it's like, oh, okay, well, fire's still 20 miles out, the wind's moving the opposite direction. Okay, I got another week,
In the vineyards, the actual threat from fire is low. In fact, fields like this one are typically a good fire defense for the buildings they surround. It's smoke that is the problem.
The reason for that is something called smoke taint. So, if you have smoke that sits in a vineyard over a period of time, it latches onto the skins and the sugar. It actually creates like very heavy barbecue, ashtray kind of characteristics in the wines. Depending on what the winds do and what this fire does, there's a real big chance that we're not gonna be able to harvest fruit this year, which would be really bad.
Some vineyards are just one lost crop away from their business coming to an end.
First of all, it hurts the grower. This particular grower has insurance. It'll cover his costs. So basically, he doesn't make any money this year. He limps along. I mean, if he was in dire straits, could potentially ruin, kill his business.
Hotter, drier conditions are becoming part of a new normal in California. Although last year, the Kincaid fire started because of faulty electrical equipment, this year's combination of a searing heat wave and rare summer lightning storms have kicked off what scientists predict could be a catastrophic fire season. Winemakers are trying their best to adapt, but there are many complications. The power at Emmett Scorsoni Wines was out for 1 week.
We evacuated from here, we got out what we could. We knew at some point the power would be cut. The immediate concern is the temperature control in our cellar. We had no time at all to plan a full evacuation of 150 barrels of wine, so we decided we had 1 truckload. We took our 6 most expensive barrels to hope for the best.
Last year, the 100-year-old Soda Rock Winery was destroyed by the Kincaid fire. They were able to reopen, but the future of the business remains uncertain.
Well, what a weird season, huh?
Some vineyards have crop insurance, but it rarely covers all losses. That puts growers like Ross in a bind. Harvest what they can and risk that the wine made from them will have an unpleasant smoke flavor, or let them rot on the vine and file an insurance claim. And it means asking field workers to brave rough conditions in the midst of an ongoing pandemic. A July study revealed that California agricultural workers are 3 times more likely to contract the virus compared to workers in other sectors. Corazon Healdsburg, a local nonprofit, has been distributing food since the pandemic began. Today, they are doing free COVID testing for the community. Many here are agricultural workers and families.
So for those who work in the vineyards, many commute together for work, many live together in the same households or in communal bunkhouses. If somebody is infected with COVID, that could really have a huge impact on the whole operation. And so that's why this testing is so important right now. Okay, so you're just gonna wait right here. We are seeing a disproportionate impact of COVID on our Latino community. I think it is exacerbated by the working conditions and living conditions of the Latino community here.
Despite these challenges, winemakers are taking steps to protect their workers and their grapes. Organizations are providing safety information on fires and COVID, and labs are being set up to test for smoke taint in grapes. But many growers like Palmer Emmett of Emmett Scorsoni Wines are optimistic about the industry's future.
Hopefully this is not going to be an annual occurrence, but Sonoma County and the wine industry are very resilient as a whole, and I think we'll survive and keep chugging.
In the wee hours of Sunday morning, Ross Reedy's crew finished their emergency pick.
It is now 1:30. We're back at the winery and just brought all this fruit back. It's been a pretty wild day. We got about 10 tons of rosé of Zinfandel out of Dry Creek. And it's not ideal. We would have loved to have turned this into a still red wine, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Tomorrow is a new day, a whole new set of circumstances that are going to be difficult to navigate through, but that's the way it goes right now.
The largest fire in Sonoma history burned through here last October. Sorting through what the fires leave behind has become a regular part of life in California.
That was my room, that was my bed. My grandma had that bed since before I was born. I don't even like being here right now. I don't like looking at it.
California has always burned, but 3 years of back-to-back fires have taken a devastating toll, and an insurance crisis is unfolding.
I'm happy to have survived it, but I'm very unhappy that I lost all my neighbors.
While no one died in the latest fire, people in Sonoma County have to make a choice: live with the risk or leave for good. This is the last home standing on a ridge that was swallowed up by the Kincaid Fire, the 2019 season's most destructive blaze. Its survival is possibly thanks to the handmade fire defenses Chris Arai has installed over the past several years.
The house has a metal roof, it has a stucco exterior, 10,000 gallon water tank. We have a fire gel that we apply to the windows. The off-grid system, massive batteries.
10 miles down the road, Michelle Hall's family has nothing left.
It didn't really hurt the trees, it just got all of our buildings and our structures. I don't want to look at anything that's going to remind me of this ever again. I just want it to be over with and be able to move on.
The sudden blaze may have been started by a faulty wire maintained by the electric company PG&E. It destroyed hundreds of homes and businesses.
I was asleep, and about 3 o'clock in the morning I got a call that Soda Rock was on fire.
This 150-year-old winery that is a local landmark burned to the ground.
I was in pretty much shock for the next 4 or 5 days, just not knowing what to think.
Kincaid spread across 120 square miles. It was the season's most destructive fire. No one died, but no one knew what they would come home to.
I get to the bottom of where our driveway actually starts, and I could see the corner of the building. And it was still in its original color with what looked like a bit of roof on it, thinking, well, that's a good sign. And I just got out of the truck and ran up the hill.
Arai had reason to worry. About 2 months before the fire, his insurance company sent him a warning.
We got a letter that they were gonna drop our policy. I mean, it was like a one-sentence reason. That they just decided we were too high risk for them. Definitely the DIY aspect saved the house.
An electrical engineer, he dedicated himself to building a home that could withstand wildfires. He poured the concrete basement just before the 2004 Geysers fire ripped through the area. 15 years later, As the Kincaid fire loomed, the sheriff and multiple fire crews warned him to evacuate immediately.
So our original intent was to ride it out down here. And Tess asked me, are you sure that we're going to survive? And I said, well, I can't be 100% sure. I'm 95 plus.
He used every waking minute to prepare the house, boarding up windows and smearing them with flame-repellent gel.
It's what's called a hydrogel.
His off-the-grid solar panels powered a sprinkler system that surrounds the property.
So these sprinklers have a radius of about 45 feet. So they can put a fair bit of water down out there that keeps those lower fuels from catching.
But as the wind shifted, Arai knew it was time to leave. He jumped in his car and drove down the hill. 3 hours later, the embers began to fall like snowflakes. This is footage from a camera that he set up right before he left.
I would definitely ride it out now. Absolutely, because now I know that the house didn't burn.
Arai is one of over 350,000 California homeowners who've been dropped by insurance companies in the past 2 years, in what some experts have called a crisis. Michelle Hall, now without a home, hasn't been able to get insurance for years. A local charity is helping her pay for accommodation while her family figures out what's next.
So the companies, a lot of them wouldn't even, like you said, touch our house. They said, absolutely not. We're not going to insure you. It's too high risk.
One of the few heirlooms to make it out in their rapid evacuation was the 100-year-old deed to their homestead.
I, Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States of America, in the year of our Lord 1916.
Generations of her family grew up here.
I learned to hunt, trap, and play in the dirt. Watch out for rattlesnakes.
But a century after settling in California, the Hall family is ready to say goodbye.
The fires, they're helping push me. And the high cost of living, that's probably the number one reason. Because if we wanted to move into town, we couldn't do it.
By one estimate, thousands of residents have fled Sonoma County over the past 2 years, the biggest drop on record. This latest fire hit during the grape harvest, which is also peak tourism season. So even those who didn't own property felt the impact in weeks of lost wages and rolling blackouts.
A lot of people, they got evacuated, so they couldn't work for 1 week or 2 weeks. A lot of people were out of work. So we're trying to help all those kind of families. They really, really need help.
Corazon Healdsburg, a local charity, set up a free store to provide necessities like diapers, socks, and paper towels. Moody's estimates it cost the average resident $765. Businesses in the evacuation zone lost an average of $16,000. Overall, Sonoma took about a $725 million hit, and the county is preparing to sue PG&E, California's electrical utility, for damages. For a local staple called the Jimtown store, the losses have been too great to bear.
The reason I haven't quit earlier is because of all the people.
3 decades ago, Carrie Brown and her late husband bought what was once a 19th century general store.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Her sister is the manager, and many employees are local college students.
It's more than just a little cafe and a roadside destination. It really, really is like a heart and soul for our community.
On December 30th, 2019, the Jimtown store closed its doors for the last time.
To all, thank you for 28 wonderful years.
Even for those who escaped the flames, the future is still uncertain. Across the state, an insurance crisis is unfolding. Multiple reports suggest that recent wildfires have wiped out decades of profits for the industry. In December, as insurers continued to drop policies, the state of California stepped in. It temporarily blocked them from cutting off close to 1 million more customers in 2020. Meanwhile, Silicon Valley has offered a technological solution. The startup Zesty AI uses artificial intelligence to help insurance companies more accurately assess risk.
From all indicators and all the researchers and scientists, this is,
You've heard it over and over again, the new normal.
David Shue, who was a firefighter for more than 30 years, consults with the company.
So you're not giving up on California?
Not at all. No, I don't think so at all. It's just the fact that we have to think differently about the way we've done things.
Zesty's platform rated the Soda Rock Winery as high risk for fire, even though no one else expected it to burn.
Usually the vineyards provide a pretty good fire break, and so I was not overly concerned, to be honest.
Until now, insurance companies have relied on models based on historical fire data and low-resolution satellite imagery, making them more likely to drop policies for entire zip codes. Zesty uses dozens of data points, including building records, roof shape, and distance to flammable vegetation, to estimate a property's risk.
There's many different layers of information that can be gleaned to assess the vulnerability of a structure to a wildland fire.
It could become an indispensable tool for those who wish to remain in a landscape that will continue to be reshaped by fire.
The public has to accept the fact that if you choose to live in a fire-prone environment, it is a constant piece of work that you have to maintain your structure. You have to constantly work on your property for vegetation clearance and setbacks and defensible space.
Despite the devastation, the team at Soda Rock Winery reopened almost immediately.
So I said, well, we got some wine, we got the barn, I got some planks, I got some barrels. Why don't we just open? And we did.
Today, a glass of Merlot can be paired with fresh roasted walnuts. Chris Arai is already preparing for next time.
Are you willing to play these odds year after year?
Now I'm confident.
Michelle and her father are ready to leave.
So what do you think is next for you guys?
I think moving to Idaho.
These people are setting new blazes on purpose during California's worst wildfire season. It's called a prescribed burn, a method of bringing good fire back to the land.
You know, your head's always on a swivel, and you always want to be kind of on that fire's edge right there. That's going to be your safest place to be. Give it a whirl.
And now, more Californians see this as one solution to the state's catastrophic wildfires.
All of our ecosystems require fire, and many of them require fire on a pretty regular and frequent interval.
And as these volunteers learn how to do this work,
this is one of our main tools for ignitions. You want to orient the curly cue?
They're asking for help from the land's original stewards.
Conservation organizations, state parks, national parks. We work with them because we believe that they truly want to take care of Mother Earth. We also believe they don't know what the heck they're doing, and they need our tribe to help them.
But over the past century, new inhabitants tried to stamp out fire completely.
Those focused on fire suppression are actually getting stretched thinner and thinner, and they don't have the capacity to do all the prevention work that we need.
These volunteers could be the reinforcements. So far this year, an area nearly the size of New Jersey has burned inside California. That seems like a lot, but until European colonization, this was normal, according to fire ecologists. Much of the American West was intentionally burned by humans. Smoke and fire were common, but the conditions were rarely devastating. It was a central part of indigenous culture.
Our tribe recognizes that fire is a gift from Creator. It was a gift that allowed us to have warmth, to have light. It was very important to manage landscapes. And that prevented the very large buildup of fuel loads, such as we see now when they've taken fire off the land. Our people did that for thousands of years. And then came the horrific, brutal periods of colonization, and tribes were not allowed to burn anymore.
And while a changing climate is making wildfire more likely, what set the stage for this apocalyptic year was a policy of removing all fire that dates back over 100 years to 1910.
That year, there were millions of acres burning across the western United States, similar to what we've seen in 2020.
In the aftermath, the U.S. Forest Service declared war on fire. Now, regular people are learning how to bring good fire back to the landscape.
Fire Forward is a program of Audubon Canyon Ranch, and we're working to improve capacity for prescribed burning in the Bay Area and beyond by really changing the way we live with fire as a culture.
Volunteers learn the basics of wildland firefighting and prescribed fire lighting over the course of 8 weekends.
Safety is number one. We're all here to teach and learn, so please don't be afraid to stop or ask me or anything.
They must complete 40 hours of online coursework, complete a strenuous pack test, and attend a field training day.
Bare mineral soil, and that's the goal of any hand line, is to leave behind you nothing but dirt. You don't want anything there.
Much of this work is done by hand, in small teams. The McLeod and Pulaski are tools customized for carving fire lines out of the landscape. Volunteers also learn how to handle water hoses and drip torches, which drip diesel fuel to ignite dry brush. They even learn how to use a fire shelter, a last resort safety device.
So we pop this open, step in with your other foot. Now you've got 3 positions of contact, so you can remove this hand, grab the other strap, put it over your head, and lie down. Yay, awkward.
This training has attracted a wide cross-section of Californians. 18-year-old Orion Burnham-Pullman is an aspiring firefighter. Emily Brody is earning a PhD in ecology. There are national park employees, retired locals, and concerned citizens motivated by the worsening fires of the past years.
I got exposed to Fire Forward in 2017 after the fires came into Sonoma, and was here through the evacuation. We had a number of friends who lost their homes.
Other volunteers haven't experienced fire firsthand, but are eager to learn.
I do believe that it's our collective responsibility, and it's almost to me like, as an inhabitant of the planet, it's kind of up to us to understand how it works and to learn how to keep each other safe.
Members of local native tribes are also present at Fire Forward programs, offering lessons that have been passed down over hundreds of generations.
You know, it's really great to see everyone out here and be putting fire back onto the land, because it's definitely an essential part of taking care of all of our tribal lands.
By the end of it, volunteers are certified as basic wildland firefighters. They aren't allowed to work on the front lines of a dangerous blaze, but they can assist on prescribed burns under the guidance of an experienced crew chief.
Beautiful. Good call, Taj. Way to be paying attention. Right into it.
Professional firefighters do use prescribed burns, but the recent years of back-to-back emergencies have left little time for prevention work. Volunteers could help, but there's always the risk that a fire could get out of control.
The culture of the fire service believes that using prescribed fire as a tool is more in their house. They're the owners of that. They are uncomfortable with the idea of handing that tool over to the general public because they don't have the training, they don't have the knowledge of fire behavior.
But years of neglect are beginning to compound. So far this year, fire suppression has cost taxpayers over $1 billion, 10 times more than a decade ago.
No matter how many fire engines we buy, no matter how many firefighters are on the ground, there will never be enough firefighters or equipment to be able to combat the explosive, catastrophic nature of fires that we've seen over the last few years.
The impacts of removing fire can be seen all over California. The Amamutsan lands on the central coast of California didn't look anything like they do today. This forested land was covered in grass, and it was one of the most biodiverse landscapes in North America.
Today that biodiversity is gone, and today that coastal prairie is pretty much all gone. Because once you stop the fire, then the shrubs encroach, and then the Doug fir encroach, and then the redwoods encroach. And that just eliminated that coastal prairie that is so essential.
For the past 3 years, native stewards from the Amamutsan tribe have been working to restore the prairie, using fire as a key part of the process.
Because of the heavy fuel load that was there, we couldn't just go in and light the thing on fire. That wouldn't be safe. And so what we were doing is we were cutting down the trees and putting them into burn piles.
I'm the squad boss of the crew. I'm an Amamutsan tribal member, and my ancestors probably once roamed these lands. We get that tree ready to process it so we can fell it. We start limbing the tree from limb, and then putting that into a pile.
Then, when conditions are safe, they burn those piles. The end goal is to get enough fuel off the land and then light prescribed burns that creep along the ground. This slow-moving fire kills invasive species that are not adapted to the heat. When the smoke clears, these burns restore balance to the ecosystem.
15 months before the glass fire, we did a prescribed fire in this area. The glass fire burned over here. This was our fire line for the prescribed fire. The glass fire burned up to it and stopped. You can see the green ferns, green grasses, green sedges, tan oak sprouts, and outside the prescribed burn, quite a burn.
I think that today the impacts that we're seeing from these fires demand a change. We really don't have an option. We cannot continue to see these kinds of impacts and losses, and we've got to do something to change.
Back at Fire Forward's first prescribed burn of the season, the day starts with a welcome, prayer, and test burn from a tribal citizen of the Federated Indians of Grayton Rancheria. With CAL FIRE representatives, water tankers, and 50 volunteers on site, they burned 15 acres.
I don't think it's existential threat or sadness that's drawing people into this movement. I think what it is it's a ray of hope. There's a tangible solution here, and that is that we all learn to live with fire in a different way.
Stopping some of the largest wildfires comes down to the fire line.
So I'm trying to separate the fire from the fuel that it's burning. So by creating this dirt path, I'm actually stopping the forward progress of the fire.
Wildfire seasons are starting earlier and lasting much longer than usual in the U.S.
It feels challenging because these fires are very large and resources are stretched thin.
Oregon's Bootleg Fire has burned through an area more than double the size of New York City, and firefighters are working long hours to put it out.
You've got to have people or bulldozers on the ground to stop the spread of the flames.
We followed them for a day to see what it's like.
We're going to jump right back into what operations is calling a rowdy fire day.
Nearly 2,000 people are working to contain the Bootleg Fire. Crews from New Mexico, the Oregon National Guard, and Alaska are all here.
Your day starts at about 5 a.m. and you find out what your assignment is for the day, and then it usually involves a long drive to your division. Constructing direct fire line is the best way to stop a fire from advancing, and this is a low intensity burn through pine needles, but it looks like it's pretty thick.
The fire here may seem mild, but if little pockets of vegetation are left burning, the flames can expand in unpredictable ways.
And we can see how it's stopping the spread of the fire right here because there's nothing left for it to consume once it hits this dirt fire line. Depending on what type of firefighter you are, your day would consist of about 12 to 14 hours of doing that. Here's an area that would require a lot more attention. This is a dead and down tree stump, so you can see the fire is going to consume that and probably stay burning for many hours, maybe days. So this would require water or just a nice fire line around it and letting it burn out by itself.
But some parts of the forest can still be salvaged.
There's not a lot of slash or fallen trees on the ground here, so there's not ladder fuels to carry the fire into the treetops. So these trees are going to survive. Most of them are going to survive this.
Mike also has a plan for survival, since the change in winds could make flames spread more quickly.
I need to have my escape routes in place, and at this time my escape route is back down this short piece of fire line to the road. I'm in my 33rd fire season. I'm 54 years old. So I've fought probably more than 350 fires or so.
The Bootleg Fire has been burning since July and isn't expected to be contained until October. But this land will take much longer than that to recover.
Kind of looks like a graveyard of big trees and little trees. Those were tall trees that just burned down to toothpicks, basically. But it was obviously very windy, and was driven through the treetops from top to bottom. The embers from the pine needles and the branches, they're just flying for probably a quarter mile, half mile, and starting fires ahead. So that in turn feeds the fire that's coming. So it's just it's like leapfrog at that point. You know, once they get a lot of rain here, growth will, begin. It already is. But it's gonna take some decades for those to come back.